Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining this new Friend of the Sea webinar. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar is about waste reduction and the circular economy in the seafood industry with the Asdomar case study. Our guest today will be Dr. Valsecchi, General Manager of Generale Conserve, which is the company producing the brand, the tuna brand Asdomar. Dr. Rodrigo Roubach of the FAO, Fisheries and Aquaculture Department. He's a senior aquaculture officer. And I am Paolo Bray. I'm the founder and director of Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth. I remind you, next webinar is going to be on the 27th of May, 2020, next week at 3 p.m. Central European Time. And it's going to be about UV creams, sunscreens, and protection of the marine environment. Safe Sea Sustainable Cream case study. As I mentioned, I'm the director of the World Sustainability Organization, which over the years, following my experience with the Dolphin Safe Tuna project of the Earth Island Institute, has developed two major certification standards, Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth. Friend of the Sea is a certification of products from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and Friend of the Earth is a certification product from sustainable agriculture and farming. Globally, in over 70 countries, more than 1,000 companies have products which are carrying either one of the Friend of the Sea or Friend of the Earth logo. So, according to an FAO study, about 35% of the fish and seafood is wasted, is lost through the production process. This is not taking into account the bycatch and discards. Otherwise, the numbers would be even higher. And as you can see, there's difference between different geographical areas. In particular, apparently from this study, North America and Oceania are those which are experiencing a higher seafood waste. Why? Because mainly of a high percentage of wasted seafood at the consumption stage. Other differences which we might notice are, for example, that seafood is wasted at the post-catch stage at higher percentages in developing countries. And curiously enough, the level of waste in industrialized Asia and North America and Oceania seems to be quite high. Lower waste in more developed countries occurs at the processing stage. What if we compare seafood waste, fish and seafood waste, to waste of other products, food products? We see that seafood is not performing well in terms of waste generated during the different stages, and it's third only to other fruit and vegetables and other vegetable products. It is scoring and performing worse than meat production, in particular in the initial stage of harvesting and fishing, which we know is not always so efficient. But if we look at the actual percentage of waste generated by seafood over the total food waste in metric tons, we see that its contribution is relatively small, about 1%. As explained, waste is generated through the different processes, potentially both in wild catch as well as in aquaculture, and through the processing, the distribution, the retailing. And today we're going to focus mainly on the actual seafood waste and not the other waste that's generated. So if we focus on fisheries, as Dr. Roubach will speak more in depth about aquaculture, we see that the level of waste is different depending on the fishing method. And for example, according to the most comprehensive study carried out by the FAO on discards, the level of discard is highest in shrimp trawling, about over 60%, which is double of what is experienced at tuna long lines, for example. And among the best performing fishing methods are perseining, because it targets normally almost monospecies school of fish. And other fishing method which has a good performance in terms of selectivity is pursening for small pelagics, for example, anchovies, sardines, and mackerel. Other methods which are well performing, for example, are pollen lining for tuna. A bit as a consequence of the presence, the higher or lower presence of these fishing methods in the different FAO fishing area, we see that the areas where most of the discard occurs seems to be areas around New Zealand, Baja California, Mexico, and the Caribbean area. And some of with the lower percentage are those where small pelagics are caught, for example, in front of Peru and Chile, where the biggest anchovies fishery, forage fishery operates, and around Oceania, around Australia, and the Pacific Islands. Several methods and technologies have been developed in order to reduce the level of discards and bycatch. And one of the most innovative one and effective is the one developed by the company Safety Net with its system, which is called Fisheries, which is a light system using different colors to attract or send away different, discourage different fish species. This has already been used in different fisheries, and it can reduce the level of bycatch to up to 90%, and can be used on different type of nets, pots, and cages. Another method which is quite well spread and well known is the use of TEDs on trawlers. TEDs are turtle excluder devices or trawler excluder devices, and allow to separate the smaller shrimps, which are normally the target species, from bigger species and turtles. And the Friend of the Sea project has developed also a certification specific for those trawlers and industries which use TEDs, and they can be certified as turtle safe and carry the logo that you see here. In general, the tendency is to try and use all parts of fish in a productive, efficient, and economically interesting way. This is the case of cod, which for which all parts basically are used for production of different products, including omega-3s. But also, tuna has contributed greatly in compensating the production of fish meal, which is normally until year 2000 being caught from wild fish stocks of anchovetas and other anchovies and sardines. We can see that the percentage of fish meal which is produced from fish residues, which are trimmings and bycatch normally of processing of tuna, has increased greatly, and this is very positive from the environmental impact point of view. As you can see, Friend of the Sea has always tried and promote the usage of trimmings and bycatch for the production of new innovative products, including use of byproducts of salmon for omega-3, cod liver oil, but also in collaboration with Asdomar and Generale Conserve, the production of fish meal, which is certified Friend of the Sea, from the processing plants of Generale Conserve, from the bycatch which are produced. Other worth of notice products derive, for example, from scales, fish scales, byproduct, and shrimps and lobsters exoskeleton, are able to develop plastic alternatives, which in some cases are also biodegradable. If we move now to analyze what is going on at the retail level, we see that some retailers have undertaken initiatives to reduce seafood waste And the two main paths which have been undertaken are, in one case, the use of fish bycatch, fish which was normally not traded and sold, into specific products, as you can see on the left. In other cases, near some retailers have highlighted and discounted some seafood products as they were reaching their date of expiration. And this has proved to be quite successful. I suggest more reading on the link below. The most comprehensive study on these initiatives is food waste opportunities within the food, wholesale, and retail sector. So retailers are now kind of competing among each other in a positive way in order also to satisfy consumers and opinion pressure groups to score better and best in terms of reducing food waste. The process in this way, in this direction, is very complex, as you can see, because there are so many factors which can influence and generate and determine food waste. So this is being analyzed by retailers, and in order to intervene at different levels and reduce food waste itself. A problem is also at the consumption level, especially in certain richer countries where the actual waste at the stage of consumption is very high, not only for seafood, reaching up to 50%, with the negative economical consequence also for the families, which can be prevented. And in fact, several suggestions are out there on the web to how to reduce food waste with different good practices which you can apply at home, which we can all apply at home. So in conclusion, I would close up with a positive, close up my presentation with a positive note. I believe that seafood waste can be reduced by innovative technology and new ideas. And for example, this is a simple but effective example. These are crisps from salmon skin. This, of course, is at consumer level, but I hope I've shown to you also some enlightening solution. Reduce seafood waste at the different stages of production. And you will hear more now from Dr. Rodrigo Roubach about the possibility to reduce waste of seafood in aquaculture. And then you will hear more about Dr. Valsecchi of Asdomar. I will pass the word now to Dr. Roubach of the FAO. Dr. Roubach, please feel free to start your presentation.
The Brundtland report, where it was defined the sustainable development, which is development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Thus, the focus on the fisheries and aquaculture governance and development has been broadened to include not only the conservation of resources, biodiversity and the environment, but also to recognize the economic and social role of the sector, supporting the well-being and livelihoods of millions of people, and contributing to a multiplicity of interconnected global agendas, such as for food security, nutrition, and trade. So our goal is to achieve food security for all and make sure that people have regular access to enough high-quality food to lead active, healthy lives. Our commitment as FAO is to leaving no one behind is a call to focus, action, and cooperation in achieving the core ambitions of the 2030 Agenda for the benefit of all fish workers, their families, and their communities, as well as society at large. So as you can see, the 17 SDGs has several interconnected actions, and also those SDGs have sub-actions that some of those are under FAO guidance or reporting, as the SDG 14, Life Below Water. So with that, I also would like to present to you the global total fish production that we have. The last one is from 2018 report, although we already have data from 2019 in our database, which the member countries report to us in the statistics from each country, but it's going to be launched during our next COFI event, which is a biannual event for the Commission on Fisheries. Although this year, due to this COVID exception, we are doing internet launch. It will be a kind of webinar scenario. Then we'll probably move the event. It's still under discussion, the dates for the event on 2021. Presence one, physical presence one in FAO headquarters here in Rome. So anyhow, this world report that we see here from 2018 showing that in 2016, the all-time high was 171 million tons of total fisheries from capture and aquaculture. And as you can see also, the capture pretty much it's in a stable state of values around 80-something, 90-something thousand million tons. And aquaculture has been supplying pretty much complementing this production scenario. From this production, 88% is utilized for direct human consumption. Of course, we have several different ways to use the fisheries commodities out there, but we are doing good in terms of using it for direct human consumption. Although of course, we can do better than that. Those figures are pretty much due to stable capture fisheries production, reduced wastage, that's the topic for here, and the growth of aquaculture. And this slide here, I want to show you that that's also taken from the SOFIA 2018. It's in order for us to have a better perspective towards this important topic of waste management in the fishery sector and the challenges and opportunity within the aquaculture sector. The share of farmed species in the global fisheries production for food and non-food uses in 2016 was 47%. And it's projected to exceed that of wild species in the first time in 2020 and to grow to 54% in 2030. As a matter of fact, we already saw that in 2018, there was above 50% comes from aquaculture production in this total fisheries production scenario. 2018 total aquaculture production was approximately 150 million tons, and that includes aquatic plants, which was 30 million tons. And from this production encompasses 438 species items, those that are classified in the APHIS system, in 196 countries and territories within 150 million tons of world production. So, but in this scenario, this production for aquaculture, 80% are compromised with only 10 top species production, which is really something. We have all the majority of the production for aquaculture only almost from 10 species. And so anyhow, this graphics that's going toward 2030 shows that world fish production, consumption, trade are expected to increase. Aquaculture expected to fill the supply-demand gap. That's a huge burden in the aquaculture sector in terms of how we need to do that in a sustainable way. Most of the production growth for fish will take place in developing countries, in particular in Asia. And food fish supply will increase in all regions, while per capita fish consumption is expected to decline in Africa, which raises concern for food security, of course. And this scenario, of course, it's when you talk about the mean values here, there's a lot of variabilities throughout the regions and even in some countries in terms of their consumption. So the role of aquaculture in circular economy, it's a way to reconnect producers and consumers, try to provide innovative solutions for living within our planetary boundaries, while ensuring the social foundation for inclusive and sustainable development. So the concept of this circular economy, although it's not a real kind of consensual concept, there's some debating around it, but it pretty much reconnects the producer and consumers and provide innovative solutions for living within our planetary boundaries while ensuring the social foundation for inclusive and sustainable development. Those social institution innovations play a key role in encouraging agroecological production and consumptions. We already see in the agroecology sectors in agro production in general. There's also a lot going on in this circular economy role. And examples of innovation that help link producers and consumers include participatory guarantee schemes, local producers markets, denomination of origin labeling, community supported agriculture, and e-commerce schemes. These innovative markets respond to growing demand from consumers to healthier diets. And social institution innovations will sure play this role that we need now. But there's a challenge, and the challenges are due to system diversity used, species raised, and resource availability. Specifically for resource, the human resource, the waters, and the feed inputs, etc. These are just one few that I can mention right here. So as I told you about the diversity present in the aquaculture sector, that makes even more greater burden for the aquaculture sector to make it possible in working a circular economy. But anyhow, for the role of aquaculture circular economy to be in place, there needs to be clear farming objectives and management patterns. So in this scenario, those aquaculture management patterns are greatly influenced by economic and social purpose of the project. Though some types of farms may yield both economic and social benefits, they can generally be classified on the basis of the major objectives. And governments and development agents have promoted and farmers have practiced various forms of aquaculture for different reasons. And here I'm presenting the different types of levels of aquatic farm that have been considered in this context according to PLA 2008. So we have the subsistence and family farms, we have the crop animal integrated farms, we can have the recreational farms and aquaculture-based fisheries, we can have the small-scale farm enterprises, we can have the cooperative and state farms, and we can have the vertically integrated farm enterprise. And each one of those brings a different kind of complexity of management and differs between them a lot. Sometimes to the government or for states to be aware of all what's going on and how to manage all this, it's really something to be really aware of and make it the best you can do in this kind of circular economy complexity. And those systems also, those production adopted can be such as extensive, can be semi-intensive, can be intensive and super intensive, as well as farm location, which can be land-based or open waters, which also bring then up their own special management problems, and especially in the ecological integrity and how it dialogues with all the different scenarios for the social and economic scenarios in place. So from that, we can see that waste in the aquaculture, we can at least point out some key causes of food loss and waste during aquaculture. As pointed before, a third of all food produced is lost or wasted, which is not only does not contribute to food security and nutrition, but also increase the burden on natural resources. It's a loss of waste. It's a loss or waste energy used for food production and accounts for about 10% of the world's total energy consumption. And now the annual greenhouse gas emissions associated with food loss and food waste can reach up to 3.5 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. Therefore, redesigning food systems based on the principle of circular economy can help address the global food waste challenges by making food chains shorter and more resource efficiency. So in that way, we can point here that main causes can be poor harvesting practice during the aquaculture enterprise, mortality of fish during live fish market, as well as fish sold at lower price points due to the presence of some damage as well. It will bring some food loss there. Poor handling leading to contamination and physical damage also would be towards some food loss, consumption or consumer refuse of this kind of food presented. A lack of cold chain also would be fundamental to prevent that, and also it's a cause to food loss. and rejection of product due to food safety risk or inappropriate documentation. So all those points can be avoided and should be avoided by good guidance and good policies, country and wider policies in place. And for all those things, in aquaculture, harvesting is one of the most important activities in fish farming. So it's an important step in getting fish out of production facilities in good condition, so their survival and quality for other users are assured. And that's a big step for aquaculture. So in terms of waste reduction in aquaculture, what can be done? A combination of right policy, it's a fundamental to get all the players there in the same page and know what to do regarding what's possible to manage and what's possible to operate. Application of appropriate technology, skills and knowledge, service and infrastructures is fundamental to the try to reduce the waste from aquaculture. Regulatory environment, social and gender equality, it's also important for the sector. Good linkage to knowledge of markets. Sometimes the aquaculture it's a really good scenario for investment, but some of the times we can see that the farmers don't exactly know who are they going to sell their production to. So it's an important step in the planning of the aquaculture sector to know what kind of product you have and what kind of market you're willing to supply. So, and a prudent and responsible use of veterinary medicines, it's also extremely important nowadays because of severe limitations of what kind of medicines they have available there and how you manage your aquaculture products before you can fish them and how you're willing to manage them in terms of disease that will be present in some of the stage of your aquaculture enterprise. And avoid or reduce mortality during grow-out. That's fundamental also. So that's the best, usually the best managed practice. You can follow through that and see that you have a healthy and good system to produce whatever your main goal, your final goal for your product to put in the market there. So in order to try to optimize the waste reduction or lower as much as possible, as I said before, good farm management, follow regulations, constant training of your human resource and measuring outputs. Always measuring outputs and know what you're producing, how much your inputs and how much you're producing there. That's fundamental lesson for the aquaculture. Understanding and applying the tools and technology available, always, all the time, the training and the retraining is fundamental. And also be aware of what kind of goals you're willing to attain and what kind of really produce you can put out there in the market. So a paradigm shift is needed in dealing with aquaculture biosecurity risks. A holistic approach is much needed in the present situation. So with that, the circular economy example that we have in the aquaculture industry, as FAO aims to promote this more holistic and coordinated approach to addressing the complex and interconnected challenge facing agriculture and food systems today. So those integrated aquaculture systems, they connect aquaculture production with crop production. Among those, we have the striking example of circular economy business model in action with the aquaponics, and also with the aquaponics, which pretty much combines the elements of aquaculture, fish farming, and hydroponics, that's plant farming with controlled systems. And it usually allows a single producer to sustainably grow, produce, and raise fish within the local community. Of course, it's not everywhere that's possible to do such systems with its economics drawbacks and what kind of species you're using, you may use or not in wherever locality you are. Also, recirculating aquaculture systems that can provide a good example of circular economy with using less water resource and producing locally. We have also the integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, the IMTA. This integration leads to greater efficiency in the use of land and water resource that are under a farmer's control. I also would like to mention here the FARNet, with an initiative from the European Commission with several good initiatives in Europe, aquaculture and fisheries sectors. And also I would like to mention that one of the main issues in aquaculture usually, and one of the main costs to feed your fish or feed your animals, which can be up to 7% of your total costs. And so the alternative feed ingredients, it has been going on and should also be one of the examples that we could make a circular economy more efficiently in recycling those things and those materials out there with the use of insects, algae, etc. And the circular economy in the aquaculture industry, it should allow a single producer to sustainably grow, produce, and raise fish within the local community. So for the conclusions, I would like to say that aquaculture does and will continue to supply the aquatic products for ever-growing demand resulting from demography and changing the feeding habits. World water resources are submitted to increase natural and human pressures, so much more needed work done with the different ways to save water or do increasing ways to use more efficiently the water resource out there. And achieving an increased aquaculture production can only be possible through a more efficient and integrated production technologies. So FAO stands ready on its role to provide guidance based on successful experience shared among countries. And further reading, I would like to leave here for further reading information for value chain knowledge, also for major tools and data sets related to aquaculture, all those available in FAO site, reference here, and thank you for your time and attention, and I will be available for further questions and comments. And now back to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roubach. And now I will pass the word and the microphone to Dr. Valsecchi, General Manager of Generale Conserve.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to share with you how a company like Generale Conserve is interpreting and trying to implement all the steps and points in the sustainability project and in waste reduction related to our core business. So as introduced, Generale Conserve is the owner of the brand Asdomar. We mainly compete in the tuna business, and our vision, our mission is to offer to our consumer high quality product, taking in consideration the respect of our raw material in a sustainable way, starting from the fisheries, and in combination with part of our process in a technological innovation approach. In order to involve and also the sustainability in 360 views, starting from the environmental part, but also including the social aspect of sustainability, so taking care of the welfare of our employees, our worker, and the social and economical impact that we have both local and nationwide. Generale Conserve, as said, is the owner of the brand Asdomar and is also a producer of private labels. So we have also different clients. It is the first company producing from round tuna, and the second company on the Italian market. We sell mainly in Italy, and we are starting also to expand our export markets. As said, we have started thinking about sustainability starting from the fisheries, because as most of you knows, tuna is a species that cannot be farmed, so is limited by definition, and the preservation of this resource is what giving prospect to our business. Our business cannot be converted in any other business. The fishing side, also the processing part. So more than 12 years ago, we thought and we still think that sustainable has a key role in our business. So here you have resumed all the steps or the rules that we try to set for our procurement policy. We only process adult yellowfin, possibly caught on free school. We also process skipjack tuna caught by pollen line. We avoid any not selective fishing method, fishing gears, as we have seen during the presentation of Paolo. So no long liners, no drift nets. We only buy from registered vessel, not buying any endangered species, so only species that is considered the stock is considered in good shape. Not purchasing by any marine reserves area, and working with certification. That's the reason why we start cooperating with Friend of the Sea and Earth Island Institute. We think that we need to be guided also by consultants, people that are making of the sustainability their core business, and using certification in order to communicate to our clients and consumer in a transparency way our traceability, what we are doing, the steps we are making, and the efforts and the goal or achievement that we are taking. As I said, we started from the procurement, so the fishing side, and of course we can work on sustainability, reducing the waste during the fishing process. But there is also a big part of waste related to our business during the process. As some of you know, less than 50%, making 100 the weight of a whole tuna, can be canned or transformed in. It means that more than 50% represent a waste that has to be treated in the proper way and generate a cost. So we rethink and redesign completely our production process in order to trying first of all to maximize the recovery of the standard production process, or the process as was at the origin, trying to be more efficient, trying to cut and select better the different parts of tuna in order to have homogeneous cooking, working close and together with our supplier in order to develop and innovate also new lines, new cookers. For example, we have developed together with the supplier a steam cooker that reduce a lot the loss weight during the cooking and give an homogeneous cooking from the skin to the bones, and implement better our recovery during that stage. We rethink our cleaning table in order to have a better recovery also at the end of the cleaning. We're trying to exploit any part of our process in order to maximize the efficiency. Then we trying to think a bit out of the box and trying to think a second life or how to add value to what was considered a waste. So we start to invest in different line, that the production line that could better valorize. I mean, a line that could work better the chunks, a line that could utilize the flakes and transform these flakes in added value product. For example, we have a dedicated line for salads, so combining the different chunks, pieces, and flakes together with other vegetables and have this added value. Or in use for spreadable products that use the small flakes generated during the process. At the end of this redesign, we still had part of tuna that was considered a waste. At this stage, so we think that we have to push forward the investment and innovation, and we built a different part of the production dedicated to pet food. So any part of the tuna that mainly for aesthetical reason was not used for human product was dedicated for the pet food process and better valorized. At the end, even the skins, bones, heads, whatever cannot be used even in a pet food process is transformed in a different plant that we have built close to the main plant, that is a fish meal plant. So at the end of the process, we rename our production process zero waste, because every part, every different cut of the tuna is utilized to generate a specific product that can be better valorized. This is how we have tried to minimize our impact during our process. So working first on the procurement, so on the fishing side, and then inside our plant in order to minimize the waste. I think that better than any words, any description, a video could show you better what we are doing. This is the Olbia plant in Sardinia. It's a plant built in 2010. Here we process round tuna, whole tuna. We receive it and keep in our cell, refrigerated cell, keeping the traceability from this cutting of the process with the cutting part, in order to select the different cut by weight and dimension, in order to have them selected for the cooking part, to have an homogeneous cooking. As I was telling before, is really important to have an homogeneous cooking. We chill the product and start the cleaning, where we have rethink also the cleaning table in order to have small team dedicated to clean the different part, thinking already the finished good avoiding the oxidation is very important to maximize the recovery and reduce the waste. In this plant, we process both glass jar product and metal cans. This is the glass jar department, where the process is really an handmade process, very artisanal, while the metal can is the more technological and innovative part of our process. We keep full traceability along all the process in all the different stages. That's the reason why even the other product, the byproducts such as the fish meal or pet food are certified or can be certified. We have also an internal laboratory accredited as a third part, because I think that quality is a must do in our business, and we want to put the maximum effort possible to give the best quality to our consumer. So this is what we are doing in our plant, trying to improve day by day what we are doing. So I have concluded my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to show you what you are doing. So we are. So I leave the word to Paolo in order to go on with the webinar. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Valsecchi, for your enlightening presentation. I will now get back as organizer, as a presenter. And before going through the questions and answers, I will launch the poll that we prepared for this webinar. Here it is. The poll. The question is, what is the best solution to reduce seafood waste? Thank you. So I will let you vote, but let's move on to the questions and answers. And then I will allow the presenters also to close up. So let me look through the questions. What strategies should be followed to manage ample domestic fish processing waste in India? Mr. Rodrigo, maybe you have some clues about this?
Yeah, well, I'm not particularly knowledgeable about how the India markets function in terms of how their domestic fisheries industry is established. But as one of the biggest countries in terms of production also from the aquaculture sector, I believe that it's probably the first step is to show to have a good guidelines and from the government sector in terms of what can be done and what should not be done in this scenario. So they will have the most ways to promote that, in order to promote that in a way that's sustainable as well. So I think the best thing is to have a good assessment of what's going on and what are the present regulations and strategies, and also the policies in place for India in terms of how you can process your fisheries waste, either from the fisheries industry and also from the aquaculture sector. So in order to start anything like that.
Another question is similar to HACCP or ISO in processing. Do we have any system in capture fisheries? Well, I will answer to this one. These are mainly food safety standards like HACCP, ISO. There are several standards, so I wouldn't know what you are referring to, but yes, there are standards for good practices, responsible fishing and aquaculture, or sustainable fishing and aquaculture. One of them is Friend of the Sea, which is the only one which, with the same seal of approval, the Friend of the Sea logo, can potentially certify both origins, farmed and fished. So we have requirements which are not focused on food safety, but are focused on responsible production, on sustainable production. And then there are a number of different standards which are more specific to aquaculture. So you can contact us if you need to know more. Then there is a question, to what extent aquaponic can be coordinated with hydroponics? I think I'll pass this question again to Dr. Rodrigo.
Yes, thank you. Aquaponic is pretty much you manage your water system in a way that's kind of use as less water as possible in terms of your small systems. So it's possible to you adapt your hydroponics where you're producing vegetables or fruits or whatever that you have in your hydroponics, and you can integrate them in order to the fish benefit for the small nutrients that the plants can put there, as well as the plants will use the nutrients that the fish will be releasing in the water. So that's basically the principle for circular kind of nutrient schematics for that benefits for the plants and for the fish there or the animals there.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Then I will have to jump some questions because they are not really related to the subject of today's webinar. There's a question which asks, what is the objective of IMTA? I think this was something mentioned maybe on Ms. Dr. Rodrigo presentation, or maybe we jump if it's not like that.
Yeah, it was mentioned by my presentation. The IMTA is pretty much the principle of potentialize all the different aspects of the culture that your system is producing, which is you're feeding you're using some aquaculture species to be that's fed, and then this fish will release nutrients in the water. So you have under those systems, usually IMTA is done in saltwater, in near shore scenarios. So it's a system with fish cage, and then you, from the residues from the fish, you can grow macroalgae, and then you can also put some mollusks around there. So the system recirculates all the nutrients that are not being used from one system to another. So in that way, you have in theory, a cleaner production.
Okay, then there's a question about RAS, recirculating aquaculture systems, being an efficient technology. Can we take into account the energy consumption from the sustainability perspective? Well, yes, when you are checking on sustainability, you should take into account all different potential impact on the environment, and energy consumption and its consequent impact are one of those. And so there are some aspects of RAS which are more efficient in terms of energy consumption. Others, have a space for improvement. So somebody else is asking, you were talking about 1.31 million fish produced as per 2016 data. Please tell us about the breakup of cultured and marine output. I think it's not 1.31, it's 100, maybe 130 million tons. And the breakdown is about 50-50. However, aquaculture production is increasing. However, this increase has occurred mostly in China and Asia, and on specific species such as pangasius, shrimps, carp, but not on others like salmon and trouts, which are more or less stable. So I'll just go a bit more because there are several questions. Do you think robotic cages could be an option for the future if used with local modification? I think, again, this is a bit out of focus to today. I have a question to the last presenter, Dr. Valsecchi. How the waste generated from canned tuna being utilized? How to obtain Friend of the Sea certificate by freezing and canned fish processing units? Explain procedures to be followed. Well, regarding Friend of the Sea, you can contact us and we'll provide you with all information. I pass again the word to Dr. Valsecchi. The question was how the waste generated from canned tuna being utilized. I think somehow you answered, but if you can sum up, please.
If I well understood, it's not on the process side, but on the waste generated on consumer side. So, in terms of packaging waste or exhaust oil, the oil contained in the can, I can say that all the packaging that we are using are recyclable. So the metal of the can, the aluminium, or the glass of the jar. The olive oil used as a media can be used to as a condiment, or can be separated in a proper way to be recycled. So in terms of packaging impact, the tuna business is
yes,
I can say good shape, or in the good way to limit its impact. In order of process, again, we try to maximize the recovery of any step of our production in order to give or add value to what was considered a waste in order to be transformed in an added value product. This is the way we are continuing to think and rethink our process in order not to have a real waste, but to have from any part of the process a working product or a byproduct that can be reutilized and transformed to generate an added value product.
Okay, so there's a question about gear selectivity. Is very important for bycatch reduction, but when it comes to multi-species, multi-gear fishery, how to combat the situation? I think that the example of the new technology that I have shown with the use of lights can provide with an efficient solution, at least for some fisheries and some fish species. So maybe you could turn, if that's a personal issue of your company, you can turn to the company that I mentioned on the slides. Then there's an interesting question for Dr. Rodrigo. Can the fish waste be used for particular plant growth, like in aquaponics?
Well, depends what kind of fish waste you're talking about, but usually fish waste is such a noble material in terms of protein content that it's probably because on the back in historically people used to make use of fish meal for fertilizers back in the 30s or 40s. So that's a waste of a resource because it's such a novel product for other uses in terms of animals production and animal protein conversion that can be much better. So I wouldn't say that. Of course, depends on what kind of fish waste you're talking about. But usually I wouldn't not go for use it as plant growth.
Okay, so there's again the question about robotic cages. The participant is explaining that they can be a tool in circular economy to reduce wastage and maximize production, since it minimizes human handling at sea. Well, I think in general, I will just jump in on this one. As I explained, it's going to be the new technologies that are going to help us reduce waste, which is also in itself a cost for the farmer, for the fishing company. And so, yes, there are innovations which can be, described as robotic cages, which allow for the cleaning of the nets, for the feeding of the fish in a more automatic way, which consequently reduces waste. So definitely, this can be an optimal solution. And then again, somebody is asking for the procedure to obtain Friend of the Sea certification. We will record this and we'll get back to you. The procedure, apart from contacting us directly and we will follow up, then there's also a preliminary information form available on our website under the apply area, and you can start filling that in, and by means of that we'll get back to you with also a quotation and further comments. How to avoid post-harvest losses? Well, this is a generic question. Again, I think we already covered this somehow. Maybe Dr. Valsecchi can tell us something about your experience. I know that post-harvesting, there's a great difference depending also on the fishing method which is used to cut tuna, in terms of the quality of the finished product. Of course, one cannot and should not generalize, but obviously there, technologies like perseining normally produces a product which is more in line with the quality that you're looking for, compared to more artisanal fishing method, which have less impact, might be producing something which is not always of the quality that is requested. And it's just a question. I may be wrong in describing this, but maybe you can give us your input.
Right. It's not my specific topic, but as I can tell you that one of the most important thing to maintain the quality of the fish is, of course, the time that you use to have the fish properly refrigerated in the cell.
Yeah.
So maintaining the cold, the chain of cold is really important. In this part, the innovation that the vessel can put on board is really relevant. new vessel or a vessel with refrigerating capacity to keep the product at the right temperature are giving better tuna quality. For example, the old boat used mainly for pollen line that haven't a real refrigerating capacity because they use ice on board has a very high percentage of tuna that are not sellable to the industry because the level of histamine or other parameters that we have to keep in consideration to accept or not accept are too high. So to limit the waste at the harvest, I think that investing also in innovation on board, so renewing the vessel, is something that could help a lot.
Thank you very much. And I'll just allow, let's say, 3 more questions, and then we wrap up, and we'll answer directly to the people who ask the questions. We have a question about TEDs. Just like TED devices used to save turtles, can we save the bycatch by any similar devices? Bycatch of endangered species and other species. Yes, there are different devices which reduce, for example, bycatch of albatross, like circle hooks. But again, I suggest you get back to the company that I mentioned, the Safety Net, because they have a technology which can allow to reduce bycatch of certain species. There's a nice question related, forwarded to Dr. Valsecchi again. To be profitable for the company, roughly what is the minimum quantity of fish waste to justify the investment for a fish meal plant?
A bit too technical, let's say, for myself, but again,
depending I'll put it in another way, Dr. Valsecchi. When you decided to activate your fish meal plant, was there any specific reason why you decided at that time and not before?
Let's say, Paolo, we redesigned completely our process when we decided in 2010 to build the new plant, the new factory. As you know, we were working since 2008 in a different plant that was not a brand new. And we decided to invest in 2010 in a new plant. This new plant was think and already designed in order to process round tuna, all tuna. And at that time, we have think how to treat and process every part and every stage of every cut of the tuna in order not to limit the scrap as much as possible. So at that time we decided to invest in the fish meal plant in order not to have the problem or the cost to have someone else processing and treating our bones, skins, head, and whatever. So going back to the original answer, I think that there isn't a real percentage. The point is that our core business, of course, is tuna products, added value products for human consumption. So our objective and our goal is to increase as much as possible the recovery and the yield to be dedicated to our core business. The point is thinking how to revalorize whatever is coming out and was considered before a waste or a scraps, in order to giving a second chance, a new life.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question is, in India, size of land holding is small, therefore farm size is small. There may be too many of such farms in close proximity to each other with different ownership. Any specific strategy you suggest for such farmers to adhere to circular economy? Well, definitely there must be some kind of association or cooperative, at least for the purpose of circular economy, in order to facilitate the collection, for example, of byproducts. As an example, in Galicia, in Spain, producers of mussels are normally small, sometimes family-owned companies, at least at the farming level, and they deliver the farm shells to a factory that then trims it down to other products which are then used in agriculture. So this is an example. There must be some level of coordination by means of an association which represents all of them, even maybe just for the purpose of activating circular economy initiatives. Then there's a question, what is the best way to use tuna bones? Because the bones and black meat are main waste. Maybe Dr. Valsecchi, those that you use in the fish meal are tuna bones, I suppose, right?
We dedicated the red meat to pet food because it's the better way to valorize this part of the tuna. Bones or other parts rich in protein are well also for the fish meal, because the quality of the fish meal is evaluated by the protein percentage. So if you have a fish meal rich in protein, is better in quality, and of course you can have a better contribution to your P&L.
Okay, I think I will have to close up here because we already have been together for an hour and a half. But feel reassured, we will answer all the questions. We will forward to the speakers and we will get back to all of you. I apologize for not being able to answer to all the questions. It's really a huge number, and today we had about over 350 registered participants. So I suppose that we are here many in great number, and coming from all different continents with different time zones. So in order also to respect your time, I will close up here. I will try and see the results of the poll. Okay, so it looks like, and I'll show you the results. It looks like the majority of votes went for reducing processing waste in order to be more effective, but the answers are balanced between them, and there's fewer choices for reducing retail waste. Well, that's interesting, and all in all, I think we all agree that we should be able to reduce waste at all different steps, at all different stages in the production. So I thank very much the speakers. Maybe you want to just say a few last words, Dr. Rodrigo, and then Dr. Valsecchi.
Well, thank you all for this audience. Thanks for the opportunity again, and I remain in your disposal for any other questions or any other remarks. And was a really good pleasure to present make this webinar with you, together with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valsecchi.
Thank you for given the opportunity to tell you what we have done and what we are doing. We are here to share our experience, and any suggestion or additional information are really welcome, because only by sharing and trying to view the problem or the critical aspect from different view, you can find innovative solution. This is
Thank you very much.
Approach.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valsecchi and Dr. Rodrigo. And thank you to all the attendees. We hope to see you back to the next webinar, which I forgot to introduce, but I'll mention it now. It's going to be next week on the 27th of May at 3 p.m. Central Europe time, and it's going to be about UV creams, sunscreens, and protection of the marine environment. Safe Sea Sustainable Cream Case Study. Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you soon. Have a great day.